guys, welcome back to How We Cope. We have my cousin Jasmine with me today, who's literally like my sister. Jazz.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on my favorite podcast. My mentor, my best friend, my life advisor. Such an honor to be here.
Favorite podcast. So we're going to talk about something that I think we both really connect to, which is, just growing up as an empath and really being in tune with our emotions, which
Sure.
I don't think many people are in just modern society in general. I feel like we're really taught to avoid our emotions, but I know for me and you, we both grew up even being called sensitive girls, and I want to...
All the time?
Yeah, all the time. And I really want to define that. When I say sensitive, I don't mean quick to react. I mean someone that is not only attuned with their own emotions and what's going on, but they feel harder, and they feel harder for other people.
Yeah, I think that's a word that I've used to identify myself a lot. Oh, I'm so sensitive. And it's become this character trait that actually, to your point, has in some ways really defined the person that I show up with at school, at work, in my family. But I've had to do a lot of inner work to actually find the strength in being a sensitive person and not the limitations. And some of those things that have crossed my mind is sensitivity doesn't need to be a label, but it can be a window to the way I show up for myself. The more I get to know myself, the more sensitive I am to my needs, to the way I can speak, to the way I can carry myself. And I think that window is how I've now tried to reframe a limitation to truly a strength.
Yeah, and I think speaking more on the fact of, or not the fact, but the part of you that says like it felt like a limitation, I think not only does it feel like a limitation internally, but a lot of people put that limitation on you, almost in the sense that like sensitivity is a weakness or it's a place that keeps you kind of slower. But the truth is that it does, right? Because we have to slow down to sit with our feelings and actually talk about how did that make us feel? How is that person doing? And it's a much more in touch way of living your life, which isn't always fun, but it's fruitful. And I think that I really want to speak to this because I think naturally empaths get more outcasted than other members of society. I think there's a lot of reasons for this, but the main reason that I believe, and this is speaking as a therapist and just as a human, is that we tend to hold up a mirror for other people of what they're avoiding. So a lot of people live their life kind of on autopilot.
For sure. And I can totally relate to that in the sense of like, I moved from Orange County to LA. I grew up in a very small bubble with the same friends from kindergarten, really preschool, to 8th grade. And during that time, I think like all I knew during that period was that lifestyle was very simple. My friends were always the same. And then I had a huge life change when I moved from Orange County to LA and had to really sit with what does it mean to have to grow in a community where I think like, I mean, I'm not afraid to say it, there are a lot of hardships being in LA, being a Persian in LA. And many of those have to do with this idea of competition and popularity.
Oh, yeah. And I want to just interrupt you for a second because it's like living in a city like LA is already so difficult in terms of how superficial and materialistic a lot of things are. And then you bring in a minority culture, which just because I want to, for people that aren't in our community to understand, like we are in a Persian community from a lot of people that came from Iran during the Islamic Revolution. So the community is quite small and some of us have lost our way. So I just wanted to say that and then you can go on.
No, I'm so glad you did. I think for anyone that's not from here, it's really difficult to kind of understand that. But listen, I'll tell you, when I was searching for popularity, when I was searching for this idea of like these individuals, whether that was in my high school where I had a very difficult time, it was truly a low of my life. And I saw popularity and I was like, what do these people have that I don't have?
Mm.
And it was in that search that I was really struggling because I was like, maybe the truth of it is I just don't know Jasmine. And if I knew Jasmine, then I wouldn't be searching for this other worldly idea of popularity and competition. So that's when I started to think of myself as like, okay, I'm really struggling here. And obviously that's come through a lot of introspection and work. But this idea of like really sitting and trying to understand ultimately what makes a true life. And going back to your point, like, that was a limitation of always looking to have something that others have and that I want, but it really wasn't defining the truest version of me.
Right. I think the authentic version of you wanted deeper things. And that's not, again, I don't think it's just in the Persian community. I think it's in LA culture and in a lot of, more busier city cultures in general, for there not to be an emphasis on feeling. And again, this idea that everyone is kind of just bypassing and doing things because they're told that that's what's going to make them happy, right? So it's like from a very young age, you're like, oh, that Gucci bag, that designer shoe that you have, it's going to make you who you are, or the house that you live in, or what your zip code is. It's like all these little constructs that people create to make you think that that's what makes you who you are. And it's almost all a distraction from actually feeling. And with that, it's like, why do we want to distract? Well, things are really painful, right? Life's fucking hard. So naturally, we're going to look towards really superficial things that don't actually feed our soul. They feed our ego for sure, but they don't actually feed our soul. And so I think that for someone like me and you, and for someone that's listening to this that thinks deeper or feels more, it's like, how can we shift the shame around that and the difference that that makes us feel into something that we're really proud of?
Yeah, I think there's this identity and concept in Judaism that one is made in the image of God. So for anyone listening, having this idea that your identity is holy and God, being made in the image of God, is someone who cries. I mean, God cries, God feels pain, right? That's how the world moves. God has happy moments. And why would God or this higher figure want you to live a soulless life? Why would you want to be numb? I mean, the beauty of life is feeling these emotions and not masking them and putting your soul in an armor. So I think that this shame that you might feel, you can rework it to really say, by doing the work, by feeling these emotions, by going deep, you are then going to live a life that is worthy of being lived and that could truly be one of the most beautiful and rewarding as it was created to be. So I think that's like a rooted part of the way I view it.
Emphasis on it feeling rewarding, because I think I have a lot of loved ones and clients that are like, why should I feel? Why should I go there? Right? Like, I dabble so much in plant medicine, and a lot of my friends or my clients are like, do I really need to bring all this stuff to the surface? Or do I really need to feel all this? And it's like, you could live your life not feeling things. You could be on, bypass or life support per se, in the sense that everyone is doing things for you and you're just getting by and you're not actually sitting with what is happening around you. And you know what? It may be an easier life. Totally.
To coast through.
But it doesn't mean that it will be a meaningful life.
Yeah. And in that same way, like a meaningful life for yourself, but also the way that you're showing up in your friendships or the way that in dating, right? Like, how can you really know someone else if you don't know yourself. And having these deep conversations when you're showing up on a first date, and not superficial ones about where are we going to live on the first date, but instead, I mean, when we raise our children and hard times come up, are you going to walk away or are you going to sit there and be in it? These are hard and tough questions, but that comes from doing the work yourself. So of course it's easy. I mean, I wanted it to be easy so badly. Just recently, talking about your podcast, I do great work with Dr. Michelle Halousim about working through the painful moments. It has been the most rewarding time of my life because I actually feel like I know myself way more now.
Yeah, and it's also like because she's bringing up Michelle, who was on my podcast a couple weeks ago. She's a Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist, and she really does talk about going into the pain and not feeling afraid of it. And I think why that's actually so important to just even bring up right now is that, you know, a lot of chronic illness comes from avoidance. So I'm just speaking again professionally. There's no denial in how we kind of, again, like cruise through life avoiding everything, and how our bodies, because we're not in tune with our emotions, we're also not in tune with what's happening with us physically. So it's like the avoidance kind of overcasts all of it. And so I think that this is why, again, if you're feeling shame about being an empath or being more a quote unquote sensitive person, I really think that you can use it as a superpower if you want to, and embrace it in a way that's like, how am I a better friend as a result of this? How am I a better person in the workforce as a result of this, a better family member? And how can I actually use this as a strength in my life, as opposed to like being this outcast that so many people want me to be because my feelings make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I think in your way of getting to the strength, you also kind of hit on this idea of chronic stress. And for me in my story, like a lot of that began from this root of chronic stress that I was constantly living like I wasn't breathing.
Mm.
Never really stable in high school, like going back to the root of it. Um, and then when I started to go through a process of reflection, I think there's also stress, and I think it's totally valid to talk about, of being an empath.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not easy. We can sit here and talk about the way we show up in life wholeheartedly, but at that cost, there are so many personal and emotional pains that come with feeling life so deeply. So I want people listening to this to know, like, yes, you should go there, but you should go there with a
Tenderly.
with a trusted friend or a trusted family member or a trusted professional in having those conversations too, because it does take a toll on its body.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a downside to being a more sensitive soul, because it's like, it's not just like, we feel all the good things and, we're only reaping the benefits of that. There's definitely things about it that are extremely difficult because you feel harder. It takes a lot longer to recover, and
So true.
things hurt you more, and we need more time and more space to really hold that for ourselves. And if we don't advocate for that, I mean, it can really put a strain not only on our relationship with ourselves, but our relationship with other people. I mean, I think that being being a therapist, I was always really confused about, like, why do I feel things so much stronger than the next person, right? Like, why does that movie make me cry? Why does this thing that happened in my life affect me so much? And it really does, and it stays with me, and I think it stays with a lot of people that are more sensitive. And there's an advocacy, again, that has to happen as a result of that you kind of shape a routine around, what do I do when I feel this way, without the question or the shame or the anger of, why do I feel this way?
Totally agree. And I think for me personally, it's also as much as you sit in it, you're sitting in this mission of experiencing life and getting to know yourself. What comes with that is like also getting to know like some of your own ways that you have neglected to take care of you. Um, because so much of what I do in showing up as a sensitive and as an individual who has the courage to feel means that I'm holding so much of other people's world views,
Oh,
perspectives.
yeah.
I mean, there are sometimes moments where I feel like in my friendships, because I have this ability to have high expectations of myself. And when you have high expectations of yourself because you're doing the work, people hold that and they use that and they want to sit with you because then they want you to articulate um, any conflict that might come up in a
Yeah.
friendship and not the responsibility be on them to do that.
Right. Meaning,
Um,
like, because you're more attuned to someone else's emotions, the expectations of you are actually higher as a friend or as a family member of, like, well, you know what? So and so is so kind and so sensitive that, like, she'll understand. Or how could she
or
do
it's so
this?
articulate. Like, I
Yeah.
think being sensitive really makes you an articulate person. Like, you have to be able to describe these emotions. Otherwise, it will eat you alive. And a couple years ago, I think I would say, and still to this day, part of my journey is when does it take care of your, like, when do you take care of yourself?
Mm.
Like you're holding so much for others, and a part of my mission right now is okay, I've described and understood being being an individual that can truly feel, but my part of my internal dialogue now is when are others going to feel for me?
Yeah. And I think that's like the difficulty in this, right? But something that I've learned and granted, like I've had to do a lot of practice around this being a therapist, and just being who I am naturally is really to lean into those boundaries. I mean, it sounds so like cliche to say to have boundaries, but it's really like we do get deeply affected by other people's emotions or their stories.
Or the
And
energy when you walk in a room.
yeah, absolutely. And so it's like holding, it's not a wall, or you're not supposed to hold a wall, but it's really holding, like, if you could imagine an energetic sphere around you that is just keeping you really safe from, yes, the energy of other people, yes, the problems that other people have. And then, it's like, yes, when will you worry about me? And that's such a valid question, but unfortunately, like, we can't always change people. So it's
It's
like you
so
want to
true.
connect to the people that are attuned to your sensitivity and to your emotions in the same way that you're attuned to theirs. And I I'll just quickly say this, but like I used to, I mean, this still happens to me. I just have created a boundary around it. But I used to have people that like literally would only want to hang out with me so that they can like get advice, or that so they can like, kind of like, I hate this word as a therapist, but as a, normal person, I'll just say like trauma dump on me.
Yeah.
And like I started to notice like I'm hanging out with you and I'm not even getting a word in. You're not even asking anything about
Mm.
me. Or you think like I'm okay because I do all this inner work, right? It's like I have the therapist and I have the acupuncturist and I do the plant medicine. It's like Nicole has it. She goes through all this stuff, so let her be the portal for me to hold my emotions. I'm sure you could relate to this, as opposed to I need to go look into my own shit and stop living my life again on autopilot so that I'm not making habits just because someone told me to or just because that's the way I've always lived. I think the reason why so many empaths are in therapy is because of the people that aren't going to therapy and aren't actually talking about their
I
feelings.
totally relate to that. Yeah, no, 100%. And to the extent that you know yourself, you can love others. So I think part of that issue, the push and pull of this, is that really these people don't know themselves.
Mm.
So they can't show up in a loving, kind friendship, which goes back to the story that I was telling earlier of moving to LA, being in high school, searching for something in these people, but they could never, ever, and still to this day, not give me what I was looking for and what they were looking for because they hadn't done their own dialogue. And when I left and when I went to UCLA and then constantly was around people who I could tell, like, I could have conversations like this, and I found the gems and the diamonds of friends. I mean, that is one of the most special moments of life, is finding community. And yes, I think we started this podcast saying, like, there are very tough moments being in community, being in a minority, of course, but there are so many beautiful ones when you find the group that works for
Yeah,
you.
you gotta find what works for you. And I also want to say that, you gotta embrace the parts of you that are different. And then it's like the more you lean into that, the more you're not just doing things because your circle is doing it, right? You're not just a sheep. And so, like, I think, again, it's so ridiculous to say this, but like, I grew up loving horses and animals and like just like things that I didn't really grow up around. Like, at least like the girls around me didn't grow up around. And so it was like everyone was kind of like, okay, like here's like this like really cool bag or the like newest, I don't know, like Nintendo, whatever it was. And I was like, I just want to be with my horses. And I remember growing up, I'm like, am I a weirdo? Like, why is it that certain things give my life meaning and it doesn't give, like this person meaning, or is there something wrong with me? And I want to be clear, I'm not shaming that, because I also like my nice things, and I mean, I think we all kind of do.
Sure.
But I think that it's the reason why I'm even bringing this up is because I really want to encourage someone that's listening to this to like push yourself for the things that may not feel common to actually be what makes you who you are. And if you can embrace the individuality, it may be a lonely road at first, you will find your people. And I do think that moving, like I just recently moved back to LA, but I lived in New York with my husband for 2 years. And that was a really big thing for me, is I was like, I'm no longer going to be the Nicole that everyone has known up until this moment and has
You can reinvent yourself.
Yeah, has held me hostage to. Like, I actually want to be around people that are like, oh my God, you are so in tune with your emotions. Like, I want to feed into that. I want to talk about that. Like, let's get into it. Or like, I have like, my friends in New York, I feel like, you're a fucking weirdo and I love you so much. Like, you always make the conversation somehow therapeutic. And like, instead of being shamed for it, I found people that actually want to be a part of that. And so I think, with that being said, like, I always ask this question on this podcast, but if someone's listening, like, how do they cope? How do we cope?
Yeah, I think part of that is you have to trace it back to a story. For you, it's horses. And for me, it was when something very difficult happened, whether it was in the news or in the world, I would go and I would write it out in a speech-like form. And then one day in high school, I sent it to my principal. It was after a really big tragedy to the Jewish community. And I asked, could I read this at a school assembly? And he said, of course. Nobody would really do that as like a 15-year-old. Writing a speech obviously was one that like truly spoke to the rawness of the moment. I got up there, I took a microphone, and I spoke. And from there on, I realized, okay, when these really sad and hard moments happen, I have this gift of showing up and really voicing it. So I think in those really difficult moments of tragedy, or even just in moments of your life where you think it might be easier to just let it go, to not feel it, to just hold it in internally, the most beautiful moments of life happen when you just let them come through you and you move through them the way that works for you, because ultimately you find yourself. I think, like, for you as your cousin, I think there's something so beautiful, like horses out in nature. It's the way that you absorb this environment and you really feel your most self. For me, like, speaking into a microphone is the way I feel my most and best self. So I think it's in the moments of pain where you truly find the gifts, and those gifts shape your life.
Yeah, I think that my answer to the question of how we cope is, a flower will not bloom in bad soil. And that's just a fact. So when you're in a situation where you're not feeling good about yourself constantly, I mean, for years, it's like, yeah, you could blame it on like, oh, I'm just insecure or I don't have, enough confidence. But it's like at a certain point, no, babe, it's the people that you're surrounding yourself with. They don't make you feel good about yourself. And so you need to move on to that good soil and be around people that are actually going to uplift you and embrace who you are and appreciate who you are. And that's really how we shape that connection with ourselves, but also with other people, and live a much more meaningful life.
And that's the podcast title. It's the courage.
Yeah.
The courage to uproot, dig out of the soil, to feel those pains that the soil brought you. It was depleting. It was not nourishing. The flower couldn't blossom. And ultimately, you have to sit with that until you could go to a different area where life really does end up being the most beautiful through the pain.
Yeah.
So
thanks
for having me.
See you soon, guys.
See you.
Hey everyone, welcome to How We Cope podcast, a podcast dedicated to elevating your life by your host, Nicole Nurian. This podcast is sponsored by Culver City Chevrolet, where you can lease a Chevy Equinox for $189 a month. Mention your subscriber of How We Cope podcast to unlock the special deal.